What up, dudes? Robby. Scap Retraction. Great talking point that I haven't done a whole lot of stuff on, because to me, Scap Retraction is and should be in authentic movement and not forced. Obviously, there's a need to open up capacity to be able to retract and to feel that horizontal shoulder abduction. But I think when we start talking about like forcing scap retraction, we're going to be looking at a couple different mechanical compensations that are probably going to do more harm than good. So for me, scap retraction obviously is more of a mainstream kind of like idea, talking point, concept, whatever in the pitching delivery, because of a study that came out that talked about the difference between the highest velocity pitchers and the lowest velocity pitchers was basically horizontal shoulder abduction and angle of degree at the point in which front foot strikes to the ground. So you measured that, and then you can get a pretty good idea of how much stretch the individual is creating and how much rotational energy they have, and so on and so forth. So then people get this idea of like, okay, when I throw, I'm just going to retract and force this retraction. You got to think about it in terms of like when a muscle contracts. This is kind of how I perceive it. When you force something, especially something like this, the muscle will contract. Anytime when the muscle's contracted and not loose, then you're going to lose range of motion. So then you're not going to be able to get into a higher degree of that. And you're actually going to force mechanical compensations or movement compensations when you do this. Why? Because if the muscle is contracted or tight, then you're going to compensate by then having this trunk almost counter-rotate more, and then the cervical rotation is going to be limited, and then you're going to actually have to do the opposite. Every action is a reaction. So if you do that so much, then your body is going to signal like, we got to freaking rotate because we can't see where we're expressing this energy, and then it's going to fly out here. That's not absolute in terms of that's what's going to happen every single time when someone tries to do that, but more oftentimes than not, that's what happens. So for me, like I said, I think it's a byproduct of opening up capacity to be able to do that, creating some sort of drill progressions that you can feel what you're trying to do, and showing your body how to move that way. But to me, it's a loose movement. The hard part that I've been dealing with, and I talked about this in a catch play the other day, whereas like you want this looseness of when you separate your hands and your elbow retracts while your hips rotate, you want this looseness to then get into a higher degree of this range of motion here, right? And then you want looseness turned into acceleration, which sometimes is difficult, because when you think of acceleration, you almost think of muscles contracting, and then that kind of limits that consistency aspect and that repeatability aspect of your hand, because you're moving at such different tempos at different stages of the throw. So for me, something that I think is a really good kind of thing that you can do in terms of feeling this, and again, everyone's going to have different hand pass, arm actions, whatever, but if you incorporate like a figure 8 type thing where you go like this, figure 8, and then you kind of go back right into that retraction where you amplify that movement, so you go boom here, and then throw, you're trying to maintain this looseness, and this almost, you get this sensation of your pecs stretching, right? If you watch DeGrom, something that I think he does extremely well is creating this pec stretch with his glove side and throwing side retraction. So you create pec stretch and you create this stretch through segmentation, and you boom, release all of this built up tension and stretch. So figure 8 throws you can do like this to feel that looseness of your elbow retracting. You can also do like hand cross throws where you're doing this one, boom, boom, back into your hand cross, and even stuff where you like catch in the front and just pull back like a pinball machine, boom, like that. But the thing is, you want to maintain this looseness around your pec and your trap, because what's going to happen if you try to force this, your trap's going to go boom like this, and there's going to be drastic amounts of soreness and stuff, and you're going to be like, whoa, where am I? And I know from personal experience. So it should occur right here where you pull this down and then these turn off, and then you're able to feel that occur and even get into a greater range of motion without tensing here and then limited to the amount of range. So again, I know it's tricky, and I know everything I said maybe makes sense, but then the application of it's going to be a little bit tougher, because anytime we talk about like movements and mechanical movements and all that stuff, you want to create a environment, whether it be drill progressions, throw variations, to grasp feedback. And it's hard to grasp feedback when things are so like loose. But that's something that really has worked for me in terms of remaining loose as the elbow retracts. And then as you get into that degree of range, whoa, as soon as you get into that range of motion, that's when you then pull from that retracted state. And be conscious and courteous, I guess, of where your front foot is, because you can get into a really great range of retraction, but if you don't have that foot anchored into the ground, it's all for naught, right? Because you can't launch from this position here. You have to launch from when you're anchored. Pull. So hopefully that made sense. If you have any questions on that, therobbyrowershow.com/ask. But I've had good success with this one. Little figure 8 piece. If you enjoy my content, if you enjoy pitching mechanics, I'd highly encourage you to check out my newest ebook, A Complete Guide to Pitching Mechanics, 188 pages worth of instructional content pertaining to pitching mechanics. So be sure to click that box right there to check that out. Also, hit that box right there to make sure that you are subscribed. And if you enjoyed that video you just watched, I'd highly encourage you to check out these 2 videos that I got for you, because I think you're going to enjoy those as well. Much love. God bless. Peace.